2012 Symposium. I'm going to talk very briefly in this short video about my piece Don't Touch Me, You Don't Know Where I've Been, and particularly about the commissioning process for this piece. So the piece was commissioned for the Borealis Festival in Bergen, and it was premiered there in 2008, the year before I became artistic director of the festival, in fact. The commission came from Roa Sletteland, who was then director of the Bergen Centre for Electronic Arts, and the electronics were developed with that institution. Don't Touch Me, You Don't Know Where I've Been now exists as a performance piece, an installation piece, and as a publication. It kind of has three distinct objects, and the intangibility of its beingness has much to do with the commissioning process. The publication here is something in its own right. Although it documents the performance and documents the installation, there are also aspects that are unique to the printed page and which appear only in the publication. The original piece is scored for composer and performer, so I sing and speak as well as conduct in the performance. For solo flute with piano, clarinet, guitar and percussion ensemble, along with live and pre-recorded electronics. And the person responsible for the sound diffusion is also very much a performer in the piece. Now, I developed the piece closely with Torolf Tuesdad, who programmed and performed the electronics, flautist Björnar Habestad and the ensemble Assemissimassa. And there were many sections of the piece that were semi or totally improvised. But for the purpose of this short video, I just want to talk briefly about the commissioning process and the impact this had on the piece. There were two things that were specified in the contract for this commission. One was the duration of the work. It had to be around 30, it ended up being 35 minutes. And the other was the title, Don't Touch Me, You Don't Know Where I've Been. I once wrote a piece for bass clarinet called And From This Deposit, a transparent bubble comes to the surface at certain times and explodes gently on reaching his lips, or something like that. It's a quote from Jean Genet. But that was a long time ago, and since then my titles have mostly been short and, if a little evasive, nevertheless to a large extent descriptive of some aspect of the piece at some level. The title also follows the composing of the piece. So I've got pieces like Decoy, Graffiti, To the Ground, Invisible Cities, Spring. These are all titles that say something I'm sure about who I am as a composer. It's unusual, of course, to have the title specified by the commissioner, but Roa Sletteland and I have I would say, a playful history when it comes to working together. So when he told me the piece was to be called Don't Touch Me, You Don't Know Where I've Been, I was happy to accept the challenge. Particularly as the title intrigued me, I was attracted by it and repelled by it at the same time. What I want to do is I just want to quote a few words from the publication, in fact. He says, Roa Sletteland, in an essay that is included in this publication that he wrote, he says, "What then does this long sentence, Don't touch me, you don't know where I've been, mean? Nothing. It has meaning, of course. The individual words are no challenge at all, and the sentence is in fact easier to grasp than the somewhat enigmatic titles of Alwynne's other pieces. But it doesn't refer to anything in particular. No thing or entity is described, named or denoted by these words. One might say that the sentence doesn't even point to the piece of music whose title it's supposed to be. Rather, it stretches outwards towards someone on the outside who must not touch and doesn't know. The listener or reader maybe, instructed, warned, bullied. The title is a command given in the imperative, hostile in tone, subjecting this other person to a speaker who is also debasing himself or herself, and at the same time introducing a distance between the two. Who are these people? Who is the I saying don't touch me, and who is being commanded in such an imperative manner? Naturally, grasping an entity that explicitly prohibits being touched is anything but straightforward, so it is no surprise that these figures are ambiguous. First, who is at the receiving end? One obvious candidate is the audience, reading the title in the programme, listening in the concert hall, representing the end point in the communication chain. It could also be the musicians, who are the ones actually reading the score where the title is found, the ones in a submissive position following the composer's instructions. And then it could be a message to the composer from the commissioner who invented the title. Being the commissioner and unaware of such a message, I assume that that is not the case. But this is not for the composer to know. So, these many ambiguities, really outlined very nicely by Ruhr there in his essay, they became central to the drama of the performance, what ended up being as a kind of negotiation of every aspect of the piece as it attempted to unfold itself. And it really did become like a character whose many internal voices or different facets were in constant exchange, dialogue, discourse, sometimes struggling with one another. And the central voices, if you like, in this discourse were myself as composer, performer, conductor, the other musicians, including the sound engineer, but also the technical rig itself. The lowering of the lighting rig is used as an instrument at one point. The audience, who I address at one point in the form of a letter and from whom I formally request assistance rather than participation. The acoustic of the building, which I also address directly at one point, and the architectural space. The piece was composed specially for the Luschen Theatre in Bergen, and it is very much one of the voices in the piece. As a composer then, the question central to Don't Touch Me, You Don't Know Where I've Been, which was a direct result of the dilemma created for me by the title, the central question was how to begin. And through exploring possible means of interaction between all the components, the voices in the drama, from the lighting rig to the musician to the extensive loudspeaker setup laid out across the floor under the audience, by exploring possible means of interaction, new bases from which a work might develop were established, until, that is, they were overridden, interrupted, arrested or abandoned. The piece, as I said before, went on to become an installation and then a publication. The publication is available here on the website, so if you want to read about the project in more detail, you can. I suspect from what I've said here, you have some inkling of what the issues were, but no real sense of how they relate exactly to the moment-to-moment drama of the piece. That's explained in detail here in the publication. There are diagrams, there are photographs, there are various things that I think will make it much clearer here. And as I said, the publication also includes an essay by the commissioner himself.